Now, obviously, we now have people saying, both NFL experts, fans, everyone in between, that this now creates a hole on the defense and that it basically almost guarantees that the Lions will be picking a cornerback as high as 6. Do you
No,
think that's like a true
no,
like
I don't.
possibility
No,
or even like a guarantee right now?
no. In no way is that a guarantee. In my opinion, no.
Yeah.
That's no guarantee. No, I think that's absurd for anybody saying that. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. There's no way at 6. I just don't think. I don't think so. Now, if they move back from 6 and things change based on who's picked in the top 5, sure.
Sure.
It's a possibility. Is it a guarantee? No. No.
Yeah, I don't either. I think people are jumping way too far and jumping way too quickly to conclusions that like, oh, now that Jeff is gone, they absolutely need a corner. And it's like, I always like love this way, or I love hate this way that like fans and analysts sometimes look at the draft. It's like, you guys realize this is a 7-round draft. And even though like you ideally can get better talent in the first round, that doesn't mean that you can't address a quote unquote need in rounds 2, 3, 4, or 5, or whatever. The Lions already seem to have like great depth in that cornerback room. We talked about it. Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, CJ GJ. You still have Jerry Jacobs, and you have Will Harris.
I'm sorry, we added 3 in free agency, and we've just lost 1.
Right. And we were talking about like that was like that room was deep and that one of those guys probably wasn't going to make it. Not to mention, huge shout out to Savion Smith, who got re-signed today.
Right. Yeah. Congrats.
He had that scary injury last season, that scary neck injury. And so they re-signed him. He's coming back to compete. Yeah. So like this is already a pretty stacked DB room. The cornerback was never like a for sure thing at 6 in the first place. And I don't think it becomes one now just because you traded away Jeff Okudah. I think Brad Holmes has been saying this, and I truly believe him. They're going to take the best football player available at 6.
Right.
Now the question just becomes, do you truly believe that the best player that's going to be available at 6 is a corner? Whether that's Devin Witherspoon or, Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter, whoever your favorite corner is, do you truly believe like that's actually the best player available?
Based on what I'm seeing right now in mock drafts and just what I think, no, I don't think so.
And I don't either. Like I like a lot of those guys. I actually like all 3 of those guys that I just named off. I like Christian Gonzalez a little bit more, but I think, and we could both prove, like I could be wrong in this.
Yeah, but we're going to get into it in a second. Why? Right?
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, I get it, but like you're going to have also DLs. Sorry.
No, you also have defensive linemen that could possibly be available at 6. So I think by far it's still Jalen Carter is still the biggest like need of this team. Like defensive tackle is still the biggest need, and Jalen Carter still to me is the best talent available when looking at those 3 guys. I think what he does as a defensive tackle not only fills a need for the Lions because they have guys that can stop the run. They have that in both Aleem McNeil. They also have that in Isaiah Buggs. They are great run stoppers, and they have moments where they can be great like penetrators and get into the backfield and be disruptive. But that's not consistent. Jalen Carter to me is consistent dominance and disruption on your defensive line. And he will make it so much easier for the likes of Aleem McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson, and whoever the hell you decide to put on the other edge for that defensive line to be impactful. And I think the Lions have already kind of shown that they're still interested. The fact that they had him in for a visit today, I think if they weren't interested, if they were like, if they believed a lot of the negative things that were coming out about Jalen Carter, I don't even think they would have had him in for an interview. I don't think they would have brought him in for a top 30 visit because we already saw that the Las Vegas Raiders were a team that were like, yo, we're out. The minute like they kind of started doing their initial research, whatever they found, they were out. And the fact that the Lions were still willing to be like, no, we're still going to do our due diligence, at least leads me to believe that there's still a lot of hope left for Jalen Carter to be that pick at 6. So if that's who you can get at 6, I think you have a very you're getting probably, in my opinion, the best defensive player in the draft, and you're instantly elevating the play of your defensive line, which started to become a strength last year at times. So I'm team Jalen Carter all the way.
No, I get that with Jalen Carter for sure. But my original thing was I was really on Will Anderson. And going back and doing the research and looking at tape, I mean, I do think Tyree Wilson, excuse me. So I think Tyree with his wingspan, I think his upside, right? So I would go for, so his upside is, we've seen what Will can do. With Tyree, we don't really know what he's capable of to the full extent. You know, his wingspan and, you know, his speed. I do think Tyree Wilson is somebody that it should be considered here, right? Like we've talked about, like he would be a good player here. You know, the Jalen Carter stuff, if they have flagged it, I mean, I get it, right? But I think that's why they had Jalen Carter in, right? I mean, I do think you got to figure out, they're trying to get to the bottom of if they can motivate him or not, right? Can they motivate him? I think they can. But like we've talked about this, right? If Jalen Carter can go anywhere, it would be the Lions, right? To help him get through what he's got, you know, what he's done, what's happened, and get the best potential out of him. But having said that, right, my original thought was Will Anderson, but, you know, we know who he is. We know what he's capable of. He's a wrecker, you know, but Tyree Wilson, I mean, that's where I would go. So, I don't know. Go ahead.
I don't think you're crazy for that. It's not, Tyree Wilson isn't the pick that like I'm in love with. I'm trying to convince myself to fall in love with Tyree Wilson, because you and I were talking about this before the show. Like all three of these guys, right? Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, and Tyree Wilson, in theory, in some form or fashion, we would be happy with either of these players if they were the pick at 6. And in my mind, Tyree Wilson is the good in the good, better, best. Like if we were to rank them like that way, like Tyree Wilson is good. Like I think he could potentially, you know, be a very dynamic pass rusher. But my thing with drafting pass rushers high that don't have like a high level of like skill as a pass rusher, and like they lean heavily on physical tools, it's a detractor for me, because what happens when your physical tools start to fail you, right? What happens when
Totally fair.
What happens when, yes, you're strong, but you're not like NFL ready strong? What happens when, again, it, you know, obviously knock on wood and God forbid for any of these players, but like if you sustain an injury and that like that first step all of a sudden is taken away from you, do you still have other things in your bag that you can pull out to still be disruptive? And currently, nothing takes away from Tyree Wilson's length. And I think that's what makes people really like him, is like, well, hey, with that amount of length, he should, in theory, be able to keep offensive linemen off of him. The thing I always say is like, yeah, but he's going against like he'll be going against veteran offensive linemen, guys who know how to play this game, who are like, yeah, I know how to defeat your length.
Totally get that. But Anderson too, right? If we talk about Will Anderson, right? His toughest game was against Tennessee, against what was it? Darnell Washington?
Darnell Wright, yeah.
Darnell Wright. Apologies, sorry. Yeah, I mean he couldn't get by him. He had a really tough day that day, and that was one of the best guys he went against. So for everybody, it's like Will Anderson or bust. Like, I don't know, and that's where I lean a little bit Jalen Carter. And, you know, to your argument, like I just like in that pick, Jalen Carter, right?
I guess my thing so for people that want to nitpick that with Will Anderson, to be like, well, he had a bad matchup against Darnell Wright. Even as much as I love Jalen Carter and I think he's the perfect pick, Jalen Carter had a rough day against Osiris Torrance.
Yeah.
The guard out of Florida. Like, you're going to find bad games, right? Like, these guys are going up against other high quality first round picks. Like Darnell Wright and Osiris Torrance are considered potential first round picks as well. So what you want to see from your offensive lineman is that they're holding up well against a Will Anderson or Jalen Carter,
or so Meko,
Tyree Wilson.
What was your favorite tape? Who's your favorite tape then? Carter or Anderson?
Carter by far.
Okay. So, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I just
But
think he's like,
go ahead, go.
it's dominance in the way that you expect to see from a defensive tackle, right? So again, like my thing with Tyree Wilson is that it's like all athleticism, not a whole lot of technique. Well, with defensive tackle, like you want to see athleticism, you want to see power, you want to see quick first step, and it's like because if you can do that against guards, like there's not like you're not looking for a defensive tackle to do spin moves. You know what I'm saying? Like in the middle of a guard, you're looking for them to have a quick first step and like be violent at the point of attack. Jalen Carter is that. Now he needs to like his only issue is that maybe it's not consistent. But again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think that's more of a problem with Georgia's scheme. Georgia has so many defensive linemen that they rotate in and out.
Right.
I don't think these guys are ever able to get the proper conditioning they need to play the type of snap count that maybe the NFL is going to require them to play.
Now, out of the three, who has the highest potential? Now, last year we need guys to play now, right? Our talk last year was we need somebody now to impact the team now. Okay? We do need it now, but like now pause. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't need it. So my thing and my thought is who has the best upside? Who is the best learner? Who's the one that could make the best strides, right? So that's why I kind of that was my Tyree thought was like we could teach him these things, right? Like we did with Hutch, right? Look at Hutch's 1 year, right? Willing to work and do that. But I'm just my question is what's the highest? Which one has the highest upside, right? We've seen what Will Anderson can do. Right, we see, but like to me, I think Carter and Tyree have more of like an unknown upside a little bit, right?
So, I mean, so as far as upside goes, I can only go based off of what like other draft experts are saying, right? Will Anderson is getting like Khalil Mack comparisons, and that's tempting. Like looking at what Khalil Mack was in his prime as an edge rusher, as just like a disruptor, you're just like, dude, if you can get that. Because while Will Anderson used just a lot of physical tools to win in college, a lot of people have said it's only because like he didn't have to do anything else. It's not that he couldn't, it's just like he didn't have to. And I think you look at him and it's like, okay, very high ceiling. I don't know if it's a matter of whose ceiling is higher. I think it's more of a question of whose ceiling is like, are you more confident in? And that's where Tyree Wilson kind of loses to me. It's like, Tyree Wilson could have a really high ceiling if he learns pass rush moves, if he doesn't suffer like any type of like, injury that takes away from his athleticism. There's a lot of ifs. I think Jalen Carter and Will Anderson are a little more surefire bets. Like I guess what the biggest concern you have about Jalen Carter is like if he turns out to actually have serious character issues.